Who are my favourite Wolves players of all time? Well, in this video I'm going to be talking you through a starting 11 of my favourite Wolves players ever. I'm also going to be telling you the manager too. Now, 67% of you who watch these videos aren't subscribed, so I would really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button. It is free, and I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel, as it really helps me out and helps more people see the videos, and like the video if you haven't already. And most importantly, let me know in the comments your favourite 11 of Wolves players of all time. So let's get straight into this one. First up, in goal, we're going to start with Rui Patrício. Now, there's a few players I could have gone for here. John Ruddy could have also been one, just because of how likeable he was and how good he was, to be fair, in the Championship season. And I really did like John Ruddy. There's a few rogue ones in there, like De Vries, a bit of a random one. Came through a bit when I was a bit younger, but just a random keeper. Not necessarily a good keeper, but a random one. But for me, Rui Patrício is just by far the most likeable keeper and the best keeper that I could have chose for this team, really. I think in terms of a keeper, he was borderline world class when Wolves got him, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, he was always in the top 5 or 10 keepers in the world for a long time before that. Just a real big coup at the time, and a deal which, let's be honest, I didn't think would get done at all, given the fact that he was such a big name. Obviously, he was getting on a little bit, but for a goalkeeper, he wasn't that old, and he was just so consistent. Obviously, his ball playing ability wasn't great, and ultimately, that was probably why he was moved on eventually. But for me, Rui Patrício, just some of the saves he would make, outstanding. And just as a goalkeeper, as a personality, as a player, just so good. And one of the key figures in that such a good era for Wolves from about 2018 to 2020. He was just absolutely electric, and a player for me that I just wish Wolves could have kept him, because all the keepers I've had since have been pretty bang average. But for me, Rui Patrício is one of them that I absolutely will not forget play for Wolves, and absolutely loved when he did play for Wolves. So for me, Rui Patrício has to be the keeper in this team. Next up, I have gone for Matt Doherty at right back. It was a really close one because I really did love Nelson Semedo. There were also a few players you could have had from back in the day as well, to be quite honest. But for me, Matt Doherty, part of that Wolves side for a long time, been at the club for so long, a real servant, left the club, then came back as well, and just generally a really likeable character and a player that has given his all for Wolves and has given his all for the badge. And every time he steps on the pitch, despite perhaps not being the level that he used to be, he does give his all. Now, Matt Doherty for me, and we think of that Matt Doherty as the marauding wing-back, the player that got forward, wanted to make things happen, scored some really important goals, scored some big goals against big sides as well, and a player that not only scored big goals, but was defensively solid as well in his pomp. And, like I say, that era from, 2017 to 2020, I mean, that whole Wolves side was absolutely unbelievable. But Matt Doherty has been part of the club for so long now. He's almost part of the furniture there. And for me, one of the most underrated players that Wolves have ever had, to be honest. Because yes, he's never been world class, but the level he was performing at from about 2017 onwards, there was a real case for him being borderline at points. He was absolutely brilliant in certain games and brilliant throughout those seasons. So consistent, linked up so well with whoever's playing off that right-hand side as well. And just generally, as a player, a real hard worker, and someone that I've always really admired, and I don't think gets enough credit in the modern game from people outside of Wolves, really. So for me, I've gone for Matt Doherty at right back. Now, this will be a 4-3-3 just for the sake of getting players in. I'm well aware that most of the systems that Doherty has played in haven't been a 4-3-3, but for me, he is the right back in this team. He just gets ahead of Nelson Semedo. And a bit similar to Matt Doherty in terms of the system not really mattering, I've gone for Conor Coady. I mean, for me, such an incredible leader, such a key part of everything that Wolves did so well in that main era in the Premier League, and generally, again, an incredible servant to the club. Unfairly pushed out, maybe, in my personal opinion, but again, as I say, he's not really been at the level since he left, so it probably was the right decision for him to go at that point. But just overall, brilliant, a proper captain, a proper leader, a proper talker, and led by example. I mean, people should not underrate his impact on that side, playing as that central centre-back in that back 5 or that back 3, whichever way you want to frame it, just spraying diagonal balls left, right and centre. Initially, obviously, started as a defensive midfielder until he was moved to a central centre-back by Nuno, and he was just absolutely brilliant ever since he moved there. His passing was outrageous. His leadership qualities were brilliant. Obviously scored for England as well. Managed to get 10 international caps, and just a player that for me is so criminally underrated. And yes, he is now probably past it, to be honest, if we're being completely fair. But for me, a player that deserves a hell of a lot of credit for everything he's done for Wolves and everything that he's given Wolves fans, because I'll never forget how good Conor Coady was and how much of a leader he was, his impact on that side. And for me, a player, like I say, that should not be disrespected for what he's done for the club. And I don't think many of you would argue with Conor Coady being in there personally. Next up, I've gone for Jody Craddock now. Again, a real good player for Wolves, to be honest, and played so many times for Wolves. A real leader again, and someone that again I think is criminally underrated, and by a lot of people, younger than myself as well. They won't really know what Jody Craddock brought to the table and what he was, but again, someone that really fought for the badge, someone that really cared about the fans, cared about the club, and just someone that I think was quite underrated. I don't think he was ever world class, not even close to it. I don't think he was ever anything like that. But in terms of a player that shown passion, shown desire to play for the club, showed that he cared for the club, I mean, you'll do well to find many that care about Wolves more than Jody Craddock, to be honest. And obviously he did play for a lot of clubs in his career. But Jody Craddock for me is another one that I absolutely love. And I think I had to put him in this team. I didn't want to put the obvious boring ones in because I probably could have gone for the likes of Willy Bolly or Saiss. I really like Saiss, to be honest. But for me, I've had to go Jody Craddock. I just think it wouldn't be a Wolves team if I didn't put Jody Craddock in. And I don't really want to put many players from the modern era in either, because there's a lot of players I don't think get enough credit for what they've done for the club. And Jody Craddock and Conor Coady are two of them, in my personal opinion. Next up, at left back, I have gone for a wing back again, but for me, it was very, very close between Johnny Otto and Barry Douglas. Now, Johnny Otto's peak, he was sublime, wasn't he? He really was. Obviously, it didn't end very well at the club, but Johnny Otto, what a player. Brilliant on both feet, could play left back, could also play right back. Someone that worked his socks off, real quality. And to be fair, someone that I think, again, generally by Premier League fans, was so criminally underrated. I could have also had Ryan Aït-Nouri in here in terms of excitement. Probably one of the most exciting players I've seen play for Wolves in terms of what he could do, his individual quality, individual brilliance, moments and flashes of real technical skill. But I've gone for Barry Douglas now. What an unbelievable season he had in 17-18. I believe he broke the Championship assist record from left wing back. Deliveries were absolutely brilliant. His ability to take set pieces, brilliant. His shot, brilliant. And a player that for me was so good. And it was always a shame that we never got to see him in the Premier League at all for Wolves. Because I think he deserved it. I think he worked his socks off to get there. But ultimately, I don't think he had enough quality to be a Premier League player, and it probably was the right decision. But Barry Douglas, what a player he was in that 17-18 season for Wolves. I thought he was just absolutely brilliant. And again, for me, I just think I had to put him in there just narrowly over the likes of Johnny and Aït-Nouri for me. I think he is so good, and it's a real shame, like I say, we never got to see him in Premier League football, but what a player Barry Douglas was, man. Next up, and perhaps very obviously, is Rúben Neves. Just by far, probably the top 3 players I've ever seen play for Wolves, if not the best player I've ever seen play for Wolves. Just absolute joke, wasn't he? Technically, a joke. Leadership-wise, a joke. Ability, a joke. Just everything you want out of a central midfielder, Rúben Neves had it, borderline world class, if not world class, to be honest, in some of those seasons. Just so good. Set pieces, do you fancy him? Yeah, he'll have them. Long range shots, you fancy him? He'll score them. Like, just everything I want from a central midfielder, Rúben Neves embodied. And, just some of them games, just watching him. I mean, I think of the Arsenal game at the Molineux. I think it was 18-19, or it was 19-20, one of them seasons, and he was just absolutely unplayable. And generally, as a player, just so supremely talented. Obviously, an absolute joke that Wolves managed to get him in the Championship. He was incredible in the Championship. Stuck with them all the way to the Premier League. Captained the club. Still goes back to the club, which I absolutely love as well. And just someone that I don't think any Wolves fan would not have Rúben Neves in their favourite all-time 11. I think he's just an absolute joke. And to be honest, there's not much more I can say about Rúben Neves that hasn't already been said and hasn't already been, discussed by anyone in the Wolves fan base or anyone outside of the Wolves fan base really as well. So good. Hopefully one day he will return. I don't think it will happen because obviously his wages are unlikely and I think he might have extended his contract now, but just what a player Rúben Neves is, man. Next up, you can't have Rúben Neves without João Moutinho. The reason I said Rúben Neves is one of the top 3 players I've seen play for Wolves because this man is definitely in there as well. I mean, at his age, he came in and he was just electric, wasn't he? Just keeping them ball ticking, dictating tempo, taking stings out of games against top sides. Never had that, physicality, that real sort of pace or that real sort of strength or height, but just a player that was by far the top 3 players on the pitch every single week without fail. Delivery, second to none. Passing ability, second to none. Shooting from range as well, by the way, criminally underrated. You think of some of the goals he scored. I mean, the Bournemouth goal is outrageous. The Arsenal goal is outrageous. And just generally, it's mental that he has played for Wolves. It really is. I mean, one of the best players I've ever seen live, in my opinion, in terms of, just appreciating the true art of football. João Moutinho had that. He had that knack to kill games, to take the sting out of games. He could up the tempo. He could speed up games. He could make the ball work for him. He could make everyone around him work to his strengths. And João Moutinho, for me, is one of the best players I've ever seen play for Wolves. One of the best players I probably will ever see play for Wolves, to be honest. It's just an absolute honour to say I've watched him so many times in person, and he was a joy to watch, wasn't he? He really was. And he comes up against some of the best midfields in the world. You think of the 1920 Liverpool side, those City sides, and he didn't look out of place against their midfields. He really didn't. And that was where Liverpool really succeeded in the engine room under Jurgen Klopp. But João Moutinho could just be so comfortable and look not out of place at all in those games. And just shows, the fact that he's 39 years old, he's still playing Europa League football, he's still playing for Braga regularly, and you just have to rate it, don't you? He is such an unbelievable player, isn't he? Next up, the final midfielder in this midfield, and by no means the best midfielder here. I'm not saying he's the best midfielder, even close to the best midfielder that I've ever seen play for Wolves. Nowhere near it, in my personal opinion, but a player that, again, loved the club. And to be fair, he had some incredible performances for Wolves. It's Dave Edwards. Now, I've met Dave Edwards a few times in person. He's a lovely bloke, and that may play into it, to be fair. But in terms of a player, again, someone that was willing to die for Wolves, played there for 9 years, obviously went to Shrewsbury as well, went to the likes of Reading as well. I think he retired at Bala as well. But generally a player that, again, for me, wore his heart on his sleeve, played with passion, and ultimately, let's be honest, was very, very decent technically. He really was. And as a midfielder, yes, I'm not saying he was unbelievable. I'm not saying he was outrageously good at football, but I've always liked Dave Edwards. I've got a lot of time for him as a man, a lot of time for him as a player. I think everything he does in terms of his punditry and stuff like that outside from football is absolutely brilliant. And as I say, for Wolves, you couldn't have asked for someone to die for the club more than Dave Edwards. And he went through those tough times with Wolves as a club as well. And he stuck through them. And the fans stuck by him as well. And that's the main thing. And I think no one would really argue if Dave Edwards being in their favourite 11. In terms of best 11, he's nowhere near it. But in terms of favourites, in terms of being a likeable character, a real personality around the club, I don't think you can argue with Dave Edwards personally. And for me, Dave Edwards is one of them that just embodies Wolves, and I absolutely loved him at Wolves. I thought he was brilliant to watch at times, and some of the goals he scored were absolutely brilliant as well. So for me, Dave Edwards is in here because I think he's overall, what you want from a player playing for your club, if I'm being honest. Off the left-hand side, it can be no one else but Diogo Jota. Now, there are a few players that I loved growing up that I would have put on there. I would have put Matt Jarvis in here potentially if Diogo Jota hadn't have played for Wolves. I used to love watching Matt Jarvis. Electric winger, tricky winger, proper old-fashioned winger, but someone that I really liked growing up and I really idolised. I always liked Matt Jarvis because he was one of those players that tried to make things happen. He was quick. He wasn't afraid to have a shot. He wasn't afraid to do anything. But for me, it can't be anyone other than Diogo Jota. I mean, so crucial in the Championship season. There is an argument for me that he is the best Championship player of all time, or one of them. I thought he was just an absolute joke in the Championship. And one of the best players, like I say, probably, he is top 3. I think it probably will be João Moutinho, Rúben Neves, and Diogo Jota for me is the 3 best Wolves players that I've ever seen. Left foot, headers, right foot, run at you. He'll beat you. He'll beat you in the air. He'll go past you. He'll go past 2 of you, 3 of you. He'll score. Just everything about Diogo Jota was just incredible. I was lucky enough to get to watch him so many times for Wolves, lucky enough to get to watch him so many times for Liverpool as well, and just an incredible footballer. Someone that in terms of hard work, he embodied that. He would never give up on a ball. He would press absolutely everything. He would chase you. He would hustle. He would harry you down. He would be all over you for 90 minutes, relentless. And I mean, just some unbelievable moments for Wolves. Hat-tricks in Europe, stuff like that. Just incredible. Some of the goals, I mean, if you can think of the Villa goal in the Championship, some massive goals. The Man United game, which I was lucky enough to be at. I mean, one of the best moments I've ever witnessed at the Molineux. What an incredible goal that is. Beats Luke Shaw, puts him on his backside, weak foot, into the near post. Just an incredible finish. And I don't think there'll ever be a better finisher at Wolves than Diogo Jota, which might sound crazy given the fact that Raul Jimenez was there at the same time. But I wholeheartedly believe that Diogo Jota was a better finisher than him. Someone that really did embody hard work. He really did love the club. The fans loved him. Just incredible, to be honest. And I get quite emotional speaking about Jota, to be honest. Like I say, I've got a lot of attachment to him. Obviously, being a Liverpool fan, but having been to so many Wolves games, watched so many Wolves games over the years, and he was always my favourite player at Wolves when he was there, really. So to say I've watched that many games of him feels an honour, to be honest. I think most Wolves fans would agree with you. I think it's been an honour to have been in the same lifetime as Diogo Jota, to have got to watch him play for Wolves and for Liverpool and do so many amazing things, scoring hat-tricks in the Champions League for Liverpool, scoring some massive goals for Liverpool as well, and just generally absolutely incredible for every club he was at, really, to be honest. He was so good in England. Wolves gave him that chance, and boy did he take it in this country. He was absolutely electric, and for me, there is absolutely no one else I could have put on that left-hand side other than Diogo Jota. Now, this is going to seem like the weirdest one. I'm well aware this will probably seem like the weirdest one. But through the middle, I've gone Steven Fletcher. Now, I loved Steven Fletcher growing up. It was probably because I thought he was cool, because he had a beard, he was a big, strong striker, and he had loads of tattoos. That was probably what it was in my head subconsciously, but I absolutely loved Steven Fletcher. Just what a player, man. He worked so hard for Wolves. Obviously, that was the Premier League era when it was a real struggle for Wolves, and Steven Fletcher was there scoring goals. Now, Raul Jimenez, I think, is the best number 9 I've ever watched at Wolves by some distance, but I loved Steven Fletcher, and I couldn't not put him in this team. Worked his socks off, likeable character, likeable personality, scored some really good goals, some big goals as well. Obviously went to Marseille as well, went to Sunderland, and I just loved him. And there's no real explanation for it, but when he left Wolves when I was a child, I was absolutely gutted, man. I used to love watching Steven Fletcher play for Wolves, and a player that I really did like. He had actually a really decent scoring record for Scotland as well. I think he was like 1 in 3 or something for Scotland, basically, but he was really talented. And obviously, a player that I don't even know what it was about him. I think it was his work rate and the fact that, like I say, he did care in a time when, let's be honest, Wolves were pretty turgid to watch. Kevin Doyle was also in with a shout. I used to love Kevin Doyle. Sylvan Ebanks-Blake as well, another one that I think without injuries he would have really been absolutely unbelievable. And he was. I mean, you think of the goal against Charlton for Sylvan Ebanks-Blake, and he was incredible. Obviously, there is that sort of ongoing issue with his injury and the way that it was handled, and the fact that if he didn't get the wrong treatment or the wrong surgery, then he would have carried on to have a great career, but it ultimately ruined his career. So, there's an interesting bit of controversy there, but there's so many players I could have gone. I could have gone Jimenez. I could have gone with Jota through the middle and Matt Jarvis off the left. I could have gone with, like I say, Ebanks-Blake, Kevin Doyle. There's a lot of players that I could have named in this side. I could have named Leo Bonatini. I used to like Leo Bonatini for about 10 games when he was good in the Championship season. But in all seriousness, I think for me, there's been so many good players that I've watched through the middle for Wolves. Raul Jimenez is the best in terms of individual ability. He definitely is the best footballer out of all of them. But Steven Fletcher, ask anyone, he is the first Wolves player that I actually loved. Like, I genuinely loved Steven Fletcher as a non-Wolves fan. I loved him, and that's going to sound mad. It really will. But I loved Steven Fletcher, and for me, he makes it in at number 9. And finally, I've gone for Michael Kightly on the right. Now, this may seem crazy given the fact that he did play a lot off the left as well, but I wanted to get him in this team. Now, this may seem crazy, but and by no means am I saying these are the best players that I've ever seen play for Wolves, but a player that I loved again growing up. I used to love watching Michael Kightly. I thought he was brilliant. Obviously, he was at Wolves for 5 years, a real servant for the club, and really, really good as a winger. To be honest, nowhere near the level of some of the wingers that I've seen, and there was a real lot of competition in this side for me. I think there's so many players I could have gone for. I used to love watching Pedro Neto, to be honest. I really did. As much as he perhaps didn't get the goal contributions that he would have desired, I thought he was electric to watch on his day. Adama Traore was electric to watch on his day as well, but he was nowhere near the quality. Again, I think Helder Costa was probably the closest I've come to putting someone in. I thought he was brilliant, especially in that Championship season. I thought he was actually quite underrated in the first Premier League season as well. I think he scored against Spurs away as well at Wembley. But generally, I think Helder Costa was quite underrated. There was also players that I would have liked to put off the right as well. I could have put, moved Ivan Cavallero slightly as well. Again, electric in that Championship season. But for me, I've gone for Michael Kightly. As I say, spent 5 years at the club, got Wolves back to the Premier League, and I just loved him. Watching him growing up, I just loved him, and I thought he was exciting to watch. I thought he was different. I thought he was dynamic. He was never the biggest player in the world, and I think that's what I liked about him. He was nimble. He was quick. He had a yard of pace. He had a shot on him as well. And he was a player that, for me, growing up as a kid, Michael Kightly and Matt Jarvis was so exciting to watch because I was like, these are two players that are actually really electric. Yes, they were never unbelievable. In my head, they're probably better than they were. They probably feel better than they were, and I can recognise it now that they weren't unbelievable players. But as I say, it's my favourite players, and Michael Kightly is absolutely one of them, and just unlucky to say he's not one of the best players ever that I've ever seen, but just a player that I loved growing up, similar to Stephen Fletcher, really, that I just loved growing up, loved watching growing up, and for me, Michael Kightly has to be in this team. Now, as I say, there's numerous players I could have put in, Cavallero, Helder Costa, Pedro Neto, Adama Traore from more recent years, but Bakary Sakho's another good shout. I would have loved to have put him in there. I could have put Dicko, Afobe and Sakho in there, to be honest. I used to love all of them at Wolves. But for me, I've gone for Michael Kightly off the right-hand side. Now, if you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel. As I say, 67% of you aren't subscribed who watch these videos, so I'd really appreciate it if you could. Let me know your favourite Wolves 11 in the comments. Not the best, but your favourite Wolves 11 in the comments as well. I'd really appreciate it if you could. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.